Now people are driving like maniacs. Speaking of maniacs, we're here. It's me, Will.
Me, Josh.
It's me, Ben.
And we're here to talk about... And I'll put a card in there because you get the gag.
Yeah.
That's what they do every episode.
Yeah.
You gotta.
They nailed it.
One of the weirdest things is sometimes they say the word like earlier, and you're like, oh,
Yes.
okay, and then it's like, oh, that's not the one you wanted. You wanted that word to be cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
We're
What are
talking
your
about.
thoughts on that gag, by the way? Because, like...
It was fine the first time, and then when it kept happening, I'm like, okay, all right, we're doing this.
Yeah, it's such a strange choice. It's very weird. Like, it's not like it's from the comics or anything. Like,
No.
Totally. I feel like it ruins the tone of a lot of scenes as well. Like, there's a lot of like hard-hitting opening shots of an episode, and then they do that funny gag, and it's like, oh, you took me out for a second there.
Yeah, I did like though as the show went on. There's just more and more blood just across the whole thing. It just gains blood over time. It's that's kind of a cool little.
Yeah.
It's a cool little bit.
Gag.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really liked it the first time I watched through the series.
Yeah.
And, like, I was reading stuff and watching stuff, and people hated it. Like, there's some people that just, this is the worst thing.
Yeah, right.
And then I rewatched it, and when I rewatched the show, I was like, okay, I'm less into it this time, but it's still, I think it's fine. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
They commit to it, at least. Which
They
I think
definitely commit to it. Yeah.
I can respect.
It's a fun bit. And if you didn't catch that, the show we're talking about is... we're going to start, I guess, spoiler-free is probably the best thing. It won't happen every time, I swear, because it's great, like, as a visual gag, but for anyone listening audibly, it's like, oh, God, stop doing it. I'm trying to drive, and you keep just injecting this sting of music into me.
That's it. It's like the Weekly Planet have that for Defenders of the Earth.
Oh, right. Every time?
Every time they mention it, they play the entire theme song.
Oh, my God. No.
It's like 30 seconds to a minute long every single time. Like, Defenders of the Earth! And it's so much louder than their normal talking as well.
Good.
It's wild.
They deserve 5 years for what they did. We'll go spoiler-free, and it's such an interesting show because it's like you can only be spoiler-free about this show for like the first 40 minutes, because after the first 40 minutes, it's a huge twist, and if you haven't ever seen the show or read the comics, it's like you cannot know this before you watch it. So, like, all I would say in terms of whether you want to watch this, like a synopsis, would be the child of a superhero gains his powers one day. And that's about all you can know.
And that's pretty much the entirety of the first...
His dad starts teaching him.
That's a good point, And the dad is very excited about that.
And his mum is a bit sad that he's no longer... He's now has his powers, so he's spending more time with the dad. That's really all there is.
That's all you can know.
Yeah. I guess there's a couple of extra things like...
I want the whole podcast to be this. That's all you can know. Well, you can also talk about this.
Just basically the fact that this is a world where essentially the Justice League also exists.
Yeah, totally.
So there is the Justice League. They've been fighting superheroes. Omni-Man is like... basically a Superman, but they
already
the
have a
Justice League kind of also have a Superman.
Yeah.
So he's never really apparently part of the Justice League. The father, Omni-Man, but he is also a superhero that works with them, but not part of the group.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, the overall context for the whole world, like the whole.
And
world
he
that
goes
they've
to
created.
school.
And he goes to school.
Yes.
And his friend is definitely gay this time, and they're not weird about that, which is probably one of the best changes, like one of the most direct and one of the best changes.
Yeah.
And there are essentially Teen Titans.
And there are Teen Titans.
Oh, yeah.
This is also true.
Yeah.
My God, we're going to keep doing this. Well, let's just get the spoiler-free out of the way. What do we think of this season? I know, well, we haven't... Well, yeah, we've said the spoiler-free facts, but what do we think spoiler-free? Josh?
Just of the whole series?
Yeah.
Loved it. It, way better. Like we heard in the comic podcast about it, it is much better than the comics. I'm sure the comics do get better as he works out what he's doing, but I believe Ben said that he used the show to be able to rewrite the things that he didn't like about the comics. So it definitely shines through. The context about everything is a lot better. Everything's going a lot faster. Characters have a lot more personality.
That's true. Yeah.
The mum is just the best. She's so good. And yeah, the show is great. Yeah. Do not watch it with your children. It's not that kind of show.
It is not that show. Ben,
I think it is for 40 minutes, but then it's not.
It's definitely not. What did you think?
Yeah, so I actually just by fluke of nature rewatched the whole of this show over the past couple of days because my partner started getting really into it. And on the second watch, it's just as good as the first watch. I actually think it's one of my favorite TiVo shows out there.
TiVo? Who owns TiVo? I feel like TiVo went under years ago.
It's one of my favorite TiVo.
Amazing.
Sure.
I want to find out if you can get TiVo.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of my favorite TV shows out there. Yeah. There's very little I can fault it on. Even watching it a second time, I'm like, there are minor things that I'm not super a fan of. I think it can be a tad predictable at times, but always the way they get to those predictable outcomes are super, super interesting. So.
Totally. Yeah. I'm much the same. I think the one thing which I don't know if I can talk too much on it until we're past this threshold. I feel like there may be, as it goes on, I feel like they may be introducing too much, but it's going to pay off beautifully because they're all very interesting storylines. But reading the comic, because those ideas hadn't been introduced yet, it's a little bit more streamlined and a bit more direct. Yeah. That I think, by the end of it, which is weird because by the end of it, it funnels back down to one narrative. It's kind of like through the series, it gets a bit bloated, and it's like we're going to do all these things, and then by the end, it's like back to that central premise. There was a few points where I was a bit like, I don't know if I need this in this episode. I would have been okay with this being a season 2 problem. No, it's wonderful. And if you're worried about the animation style, it's very fair. It's very cheap. There's a lot of entire scenes where all that's happening is a person's mouth is moving. It's like, I would say this is almost more of an audiobook than a visual thing. The visuals, when they're amazing, are some of the best comic book action you've ever seen. Yeah. But they're almost not important because the story is so interesting and the characters are so engaging. So, no, it's so good. And it's, again, a show that I'm like, well, why'd you end? Wait. Yeah. Don't go away.
Yeah. Just on those points you raised, I think, one, I totally agree with the audiobook thing. I think part of the reason for me it's so much better than the comics, and I'm interested in it as someone who's read now 50 issues of the comic, is because the performances you get from the character and the actual how it's visually portrayed, but particularly how the voice actors get those emotions across is really the crux of what makes a show so good, in my opinion. Totally. There's just the little notes in a lot of people's voices are fantastic. What was the other thing you talked about? Because I wanted to make a point on that as well.
Animation?
Yeah. The other thing I would say is I totally agree. The animation can be a bit shoddy at times. There's a few times where you get a top-down shot and there's 3 trees in a very vastly populated area, and you're like, okay. But I would expect now that it's had the success it's had, it gets more budget, totally. Hopefully more time to animate, more animators working on it. So that's the one thing I'd say that I'd hope that Amazon sees it as a success. And
totally. I get the vibe. A bit more money towards it. It's almost like, I feel like, I know it's been so friggin' long. It's almost like Rick and Morty. The first season of Rick and Morty, they were very simple episodes and premises, and they visually were not that interesting. And then season 2, it's in one scene there'd be 80 different characters moving around, and the environment's so much more interesting. Yeah, so totally. I think season 2, they'll have seen how much people have loved this show and hopefully given a bit more cash.
I think I remember hearing someone talk about some of the flying animations, especially of Omni-Man, where it's just it just looks like a static image that they've just clicked on a mouse and they've just dragged him up and then across the screen.
I noticed it a lot more the second time as well. There's a few times where I'm I kind of like it, but when Red Rush is running and it's just like red lines, they're just flat red lines.
Yeah. Whereas I think it's, I mean, look, we're past the spoiler threshold, so we're going. There's basically watch the show. We all love it, so there's no reason to still be here. Just go.
Yeah, that's it. Just super quickly before we do, TiVo still exists. Everybody.
Oh, what?
It's mostly. It seems to be mostly right now, basically just a Chromecast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course it would be. Yeah.
Which makes sense. That seems to be the logical trajectory for that company. But when you look up TiVo, TiVo, one of the first things that comes up in the people also ask is, does anyone still use TiVo? Which is great. But apparently 10 million people are still using TiVo.
That's a lot of people.
The companies anticipate at least $100 million in annual cost savings, whatever that means. That seems like some money. So TiVo still going pretty strong.
Good on them.
We're not sponsored, but give them some money.
That's it. Yeah. I guess one of the other spoiler-free things that we could potentially mention is the voice cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so good.
Everyone is someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Does someone want to... I'm terrible with celebrities. Does someone want to run through some of the people you'll see?
Yeah, we'll go here? We'll bounce between. So obviously, J.K. Simmons.
Okay.
Yep.
Omni-Man.
Very good.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. Just the character is him.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons
he was
is
drawn that way.
Omni-Man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Robert Kirkman had him in mind.
Yeah. Stephen Ewan as Mark.
Yeah. Also wonderful. Very, very good.
I don't know much about him as a person in general.
Walking Dead, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think he got an Oscar, right? I think he was Oscar nominated and won.
He was Oscar nominated like last year, I think, for Minari. And he also plays a kid really well. Like, if I would believe he is like a teenager.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've got the list up now. That's what's happened. That's what
Sandra Oh.
Good. Yeah. As
She's
Mom.
great.
Debbie. Yeah.
So solid.
So good, and actually makes that character a character.
Yes.
For sure. There's a great video of the three, like J.K. Simmons, Stephen Ewan, and her in the recording booth, and it's so much fun because it's like
it is.
It's what I think when we watch one episode, Josh, where it's like they're so natural, like that doesn't sound like they're acting. In the best way. It's like they just sound like people that they've recorded a conversation of.
And that's totally what they have done. And I love that they do it. And then the people are like the people recording them, the producers are like, all right, yeah, that's good. All right, next one. Like they just move straight on. They just barely care. It's great.
Jason Mantzoukas as Rexplode.
So good.
So good.
I love Jason Mantzoukas, man. I saw a meme that was just like, I love that this guy just turns up to play a douchebag in everything. The best.
I didn't have a voice for that character when I was reading the comics, but it's like as soon as he spoke, I'm like, oh yeah, of course he's like that.
It makes so much sense. And I think one of the things that was quite exciting to me was after reading some interviews, I found out that they didn't really write him for the show knowing it would be Jason playing it, and now they know that Jason's playing it. They intend to write the character more towards him, which I think is very good.
He's going to have fun with that.
He's just got such a douchebaggy voice. It works so well. He's so arrogant.
The person that I was like, I guess it's 8 episodes, like 4 episodes in, I was like, I know this voice, and it's for Robot, and it's Zachary Quinto. Spock from the new Star Trek films.
Yeah, right.
It's like the whole time he was speaking, I'm like, you see, this is the right voice for this character, and I feel like I've heard this voice with a character like this before, and then I think I just saw it in the cast list. I'm like, amazing, good.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And obviously Mark Hamill, Seth Rogen, Zazie Beetz, who you'd know as Domino from the Deadpools, is Amber, which is really fun.
Oh, nice.
She's in Joker as well.
That's true. She is in Joker.
Yeah.
Another really good change to that character.
Yeah.
Then the last one, apart from the 700 other people, Ezra Miller, Walton Goggins. Walton Goggins.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Amazing.
I think he's actually my standout in the whole show, to be honest. Cecil has no right to be as good of a character as he is in this show without going into spoilers. Walton Goggins makes this really corporate government character who you really shouldn't like or care about at all into like a person who seems to actually care about things, but he is also doing shady shit, but for the right reasons. And it's just like, as someone who only had seen him in Ant-Man and the Wasp before this, and he's just like a weird, shady Southern American, I was like very impressed by the range he had.
It's like, they're all brilliant, but he's the one that, having seen a few of his things, he's always that same seedy, like, he doesn't do anything else in the movies. He's in Tomb Raider. He's still playing the same character from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, he's always the bad guy. So, yeah, I think I knew that he was in this beforehand and was like, I'm gonna know it's him, but you totally forget. And like you say, in the comics, he was actually the character that I was most scared of having to deal with in the show, because I'm like, that's kind of so boring. Every time he turns up and is like, there's just the shield of their universe. It's like, I don't give a shit. But yeah, it's like, there's so much humanity to him, and I'm worried for him. Like, when everything starts to go down, I was like, oh, I hope he's okay.
I think it's actually in the comics, like, he is that classic cliche government doing seedy stuff in the back and doesn't seem to care that much. Like, he cares a little bit about, like, what the things he's doing. But every time he, like, is seemingly doing something shady in this show, you could, there's, like, a reason behind it. And it's also in the way he delivers the lines where it's like, oh, I'm just doing this because I have to.
It's like, he's doing this the whole time. Like, he's got his head on his head. Like, God damn it, I don't want to do this. No, incredible voice cast. It's such a tricky thing, because I'm talking about it in the office, and I think Nick has watched it. I'm not sure, but we were talking about it, and it's always like, oh, the voice cast is crazy. There's so many famous people, and then the gut reaction, which I totally understand, is, oh, that's a shame, because it's like, usually that is a bad thing. It's like, that's the problem with like DreamWorks films and stuff. It's like they cast big names and go, well, that'll do. Whereas this is, they've managed to cast big names that are the characters and not big names that can just talk that character. That'll do. It's like, they are the perfect version of that thing.
The only other one that pops into my head is Gillian Jacobs for Adam Eve, who plays Britta in Community. And she was the one, when I watched it the first time, where I was like, I know your voice, and it's bugging me that I know that that's who you are. Yeah. But I will stay rewatching it. The character, like, it really does fit the character, and like makes sense for that to be her voice. Totally. So even that one, which I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, I've come around to.
It still came around. Yeah. And it's a great character as well. But yeah, where I was kind of going was, the worry now is the live action one. Like, what are you gonna do there? Like, it's such a bizarre thing. It's like, these characters have never existed for a lot of people before. There's a lot of people that will never read the comics, so this is it. It's not like Iron Man, who has existed for 60 years before Robert Downey Jr. played him. It's like, this is the only version of this character that they have ever experienced. If you don't get J.K. Simmons to do it, he's the only one. Him and Mum, I keep forgetting. They're the only two that I feel like can just slip straight in. Whereas everyone else is older. Like, you can't have Stephen Ewan. As brilliant as his voice is, it's like, that's not a guy in high school.
If you get some fancy de-aging technology, you could, but they're not Disney.
They're not Disney. So, they can barely animate a show. So, yeah, that's like, it's obviously not a fear that we need to have, because this show is not going away, which is so baffling to me. It's like, can this dude just not work on one project at a time? Like, is that a problem for him? He's like, no, I'm going to do Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead. I'm going to animate this, and I'm also going to make a live action. Just like, pick one of each. Just do one. Dude, just calm down, Kirk.
Not to mention his company expanded into video games like a year ago. So
what?
Oh,
dude. I mean, he's pumping good things in our faces.
Video game.
Yeah, it's true.
An Invincible video game. I don't... Oh... I was going to say, I don't know what you
fly through hoops, and then
that's it.
Superman.
Yeah, that's it. 100%.
We're well into spoilers now. The one question I have, because it's an interesting... How'd you feel with, like, the violence in this show? Because it's so intense. Like, it's more than I think I've ever seen in anything before.
It is. Like, I always talk about how violent Harley Quinn, the Harley Quinn series is. And that's pretty damn violent.
The show opens with the Joker coming out of a human's body.
Yeah, and like Harley just exploding dudes' kneecaps and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is another this is another level above that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I will not be watching it with many other people that I don't think would enjoy it, aka my girlfriend.
It's visceral. Like it's intense. You always know what it is that you're seeing.
There's
no ambiguity.
Yeah.
Like I will say, it was surprising because I know my partner doesn't traditionally like gory stuff and was like hesitant because I'd mentioned that. And I was like, look, we'll just give the first episode a try because you'll know in the first episode.
That's true.
In the end scene,
Absolutely.
if it's something you can deal with. And I actually think, like, she watched through the whole first episode. That was the end scene, but she was so enraptured by the rest of the show. And she got to the end and she was like, it's violent. I'm not normally into that, but I really like it. And then in 2 days, we watched all 8 episodes. And we got to the episode 8, which has an even more violent scene. That fucking train scene, man.
My God.
Oh, dude. People don't explode like that.
They might. You've never done it before.
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't know. But
But like we got to the end of it and she was like, no, I still like really like it. And it's a very violent show. So like it is the kind of thing where I'm like, I wouldn't recommend it to people who don't like violence, but at the same time, people have surprised me in liking it, even though it's not traditionally their thing. So
yeah, the story pulls you through. It's so good.
And I guess because every like act of violence in it is so story driven as well. Like you say, like you get wrapped up in the story, but it's like even when things are happening, the violence is only that violent because that character is that powerful. It's not like Deadpool where it's like, oh, why is he cutting in like people in half? Like those swords wouldn't actually do that. You're like not it's a bit glorifying, but it's also like stylized violence. Whereas it's like these are real beings doing the things, and that is exactly what would happen. And like and there's always emotional weight to it.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason. It's not just like, oh, they're beating the crap out of someone, now they're dead. It's like every time Invincible experienced that, he hated it. Like he was destroyed by it. Or it's there for like a shock to be like, holy crap, that just happened. Like there is a huge emotional thing in there, and they lean into it. It's not just, we're just going to kill this guy, we're just going to kill this guy, we're just going to kill this guy, let's move on. It's like there is something like holding you down with that, and it's just like you need to experience this to understand.
It's remarkable that it's never gratuitous. Like that in a show that is so violent, you never like there is not one scene, maybe the train scene but even then it's like you can sense why it's happening.
Yeah. That train is so long too.
It's happening.
It's so much longer than a train actually is, I swear. That thing goes for like a minute. It's crazy.
It's very intense. It was definitely the same where I was like, did this happen? Like, because I read it forward as well, where all this kind of thing happens. I'm like, I don't remember that.
No, it didn't. That was added.
Yeah, it's like a whole issue worth.
Every page would be that.
When we were reading the comics for the comic cast and I was watching the show at the same time, I think we recorded the comic cast in between episodes 7 and 8.
Yes.
And so I read forward like a bunch of issues after that comic cast because I was really into it. Then I watched episode 8 and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this because I've just learned the stuff that I was about to learn.
Totally.
And then they had the train scene and I was like, I wasn't there. Sure. Okay, that's fine. I'm back in.
And I love it because like we're obviously skipping right at the end, but there's that and there's also like the building collapsing and like there's such a like someone needs to check on Robert because it's like for you to decide that these are things that people need to see. It's like, what is wrong with this man?
Totally. Yeah. For people for Emmy, there is a scene where Invincible is trying to hold up a building that's about to fall over, and he's holding a mother whose daughter is also in the building, and he's saving her from trying to fall out of the building. And then the whole building ends up collapsing, or the dad pushes it over or whatever. Yeah. And then at the end of it, Invincible is still holding on to the woman's arm, but only the arm, because the rest of her is gone, and so is the child. It's literally just a severed arm. So dark, so intense.
And just to like, it's almost the least
Amazing.
of all those, but to complete the trifecta, it's like there's a bit where they save a dude that's like flying a helicopter or something, and they get him to the ground, and he's like, "Cool," like you're like, everything's fine, and then Omni-Man's yeah, cool, like let me just grab your head and just, this is what happens, man. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, it's insane, and we've now just gone through essentially all of episode 8.
Yeah, that's all that happens. It's just everything.
The thing that you mentioned, Will, earlier about how all the violence is like character driven or emotionally charged is really interesting, because I feel like you really feel that in the first episode as well, in that final fight where this violence like surprises you.
Totally.
And it's wild. Even rewatching that scene, you can tell there's a history between each of those characters. Like as Omni-Man attacks each of them, you can tell there's some kind of history there, just in the way it's animated and the way those fights play out. In that, like, he's working at their weaknesses. He has a personal grudge against the very specific ones of them, clearly, and it's super impressive.
And it's such a level up, because in the original issue, it's basically just a splash page of like dead, end.
Yeah,
and it's like it's intense, and it's like it's just a different version of that. Whereas this definitely sets up a lot more. It sets Omni-Man up a lot more than I think that does, because in the comic, you're kind of, he's also in the shadows, and you don't really, you're like, is it him? Is it like a double? It's a lot more vague. Whereas it's definitely telling a different narrative than what that original run was going for.
I love how much more extended the show's fight was.
I just have to repeat what my partner said when we were watching it, because obviously the rest of that first episode, very lovely, and you kind of come to love Omni-Man, Nolan, and then we start that scene and he starts killing people, and she's like, oh no, I liked him.
Yeah, totally.
And me sitting there knowing the rest of this show and just how dark he falls, I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh my god,
that's great.
It's very sad. Well, I mean, we're talking about things that are changed, obviously. Josh, how much did you go any further than the comic cast, or just those first two volumes?
Just the first two volumes, unfortunately. I do want to read more, because I did love it, and I would love to read more to then see for like the next season how they change things and stuff. And I know I'm probably a long way off reaching that in terms of the comics, because the volumes that we read are like the first two episodes or something.
Totally. But even in saying that,
I would love to.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot more new plots in this. I think I read maybe 6 more issues, so not the full 50, Ben. But like I really enjoyed what it added to the story, because even though it's only those 2 volumes, Josh, like 3 episodes later, the end happens. Like we were pretty close to the big reveal and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
And so it is a really quick pivot to that plot point. Whereas
that is very quick. Yeah,
totally. Whereas this whole arc of the show and adding all these extra little adventures, kind of like Rebels and stuff, where it's like, this feels like it's filler, but they do an incredible job of just pulling this plot thread that's probably a single issue later in it, inserting it and tying it into this new narrative that they're trying to tell. That there's not an episode of filler here. The one comic of filler that we all were dreading, which is the going to the college, is one of the best episodes. Like, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I think I messaged Will when Will was watching through the show, and he was saying like, oh, I'm loving it and everything. And I was like, I just love how everything matters. Yeah. It's just ridiculous how much anything that happens in the show matters. They call back to everything.
Totally.
And it's like, that is an impressive feat in writing, to be able to do that and have it like not feel like, I don't know, cheesy, not have it feel like it was unnecessary. It's like it all feels like it adds value to the story, all the side stories and stuff. Yeah,
there's no like lines early on that you're like, oh well, that'll pay off later. It's like, it's all dialogue that just seemingly mirrors itself later on. I'm trying to find a meme which I saved. Here you go. Which was which, and I mean, it's very not a big moment, but it's like these things. It's like him talking to, who's Zazie Beetz play again? His girlfriend, Amber, because he says to her, I've got this amazing new strategy. I'll let him hit me until he gets bored and goes home, which is him talking about the bully in the first episode. And in the final episode, he lets his father just beat him to a pulp until he gets bored and goes home. So it's like...
Great. I didn't think of that.
Totally. Like, I saw that and I'm like, it's just such a well-written thing. And it does help when you write 200 comics and go, okay...
What
that was the first draft. What do I do next?
Does that mean the live action?
15 years of a first draft.
Yeah. The live action is the third draft?
Yeah.
Is that why it's going to be good?
It'll be the best version of the story of Invincible.
What we've learned is Robert Kirkman doesn't edit his things. He just puts them out and then decides to make a TV show 15 years later.
Totally. Oh, what a man. But it's such a weird show to talk about because everything matters. You almost want to discuss every little bit and piece. I feel like the one like element which I didn't. It's better, like I said, Amber, right? That's the girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think far better than what the comic, at least from what we'd read. Because in that she was just like a boring white girl, right? Like
she doesn't get better.
Yeah, right.
She doesn't get better.
Great.
I can tell you that.
She's a great character in this, and she has good interactions with Adam Eve and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like she still falls onto and it's one of the tropes. The trope of like, you suck. You should be doing these things, because she has that conversation with Mark where it's like, you keep running away and all the kind of Peter Parker tropes. And then it turns out she's always known. And I'm like, well, you saw him saving the entire campus, right? And you knew in that moment. Yeah. So why are you getting angry at him? Like, what more do you want from him? Whereas that conversation when Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane has it with Peter Parker, they don't know he's Spider-Man. So they're like, where are you? You keep abandoning him, and he can't tell them. But in this, it felt like I felt hurt, because I'm like, what do you want from him? Like, you saw him, because her argument is you're distant and all that, but at the same time, he was in front of her saving everyone. Yeah. So it's like, what's your argument here?
Yeah, totally. I'm like, just break up with her and go out with Adam Eve.
No, yeah,
This is an interesting one, because I definitely felt the same after watching it, and like they also they backtrack on it a bit in the last episode, and she's like, "Oh, it's all okay," and I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
This proper comic book, like Mary Jane.
That was the one. To me, that was the one time where I was like, "Oh, you didn't need to do that." Like, it's Eve is Endgame. That is. That's just what it is in the comics, and that's Amber exists for that purpose. I'm sorry for the spoiler, but it very much leads into it in the comics if you read.
Spoiler, but also like a grain of hope and happiness for you.
It also could. The thing is, I say it because like it could not be in the TV show because of the kind of character they made Amber. But it's. I guess the one thing I will say is that definitely watching it back, I understand Amber's perspective more, in that the way she phrases things, a lot of those first, maybe not initially, but once you can tell she's starting to con on, the way she phrases her sentences, it's very clear that she's giving Mark an in to tell her. And it's like, I know what's going on. I want you to tell me, because I know you're keeping it from me, and I want to see if this is something that we can get through. And it was interesting watching it with my partner as well, because she has a different perspective on that kind of relationship, and was also like, she was like, she's too good for him. He's not talking to her. He's not telling her the truth, even though, yes, he's going to save a bunch of people. And I was like, well, I was talking to her and I was like, well, this is from my perspective. This is how I can see why Mark is in the right. But it's like, there definitely is a interesting dichotomy there, that even, you're right, it is probably the one thing where I'm like, I'm not as certain that works as well, but when you think about it more and more and watching it back, I definitely felt like it started to work. Again, don't like that in episode 8 they're like, it's fine,
hit that button.
But that's that is interesting, where I'm at with that now.
Yeah, I think in my head, I don't know if either of them are like in the right or in the wrong
sure.
there, but I'm just like, you just don't work. Like, because if she's going to get angry at you when she knows that you're saving the world and you're doing good, then she shouldn't be with you. She should be with someone that she can handle. Like,
or
and
someone
suits
that
her
can
more.
be
not like can handle, but
totally.
be what she wants. But
well, look, the biggest issue
Invincible needs a person like his own mum.
Yeah.
Who just doesn't care. Or Adam Eve.
Or Adam Eve. That is, I was going to say.
And gets it.
Basically, superheroes, as much as they want to, they should not be in relationship with humans. It's just, it's always going to end in pain.
And to go Omni-Man's credit, Omni-Man kind of says it. He doesn't out and out say it because he's married Mark's mum, obviously. But Adam Eve says it to him multiple times. It's like even though which I do appreciate that she's respectful of their relationship the whole time, that they don't go the easy route, which is the jealousy battle between them. She sees them making out, and she's like, good for you, Mark, and she helps Mark out. But even she's like, it just doesn't work. It's not going to work. And
totally.
So I like that they lean into that for sure. I don't know. I hope they have longer in the show, but I'm also like, it's unlikely. They don't work. That's the thing. The one thing I hope is, I'm pretty sure I haven't read beyond issue 50, which is around when the switch happens. But I'm pretty sure Amber just doesn't exist after that, and I'm hoping she just stays in the show as like a friend at least now that she knows the secret.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I hope that she at least remains there in some capacity, because I think she's a really cool character.
And I guess one of the biggest things we also talked about, you really should just go listen to the comic cast on Invincible, because it's almost a two-parter. Like, this is the second half. Like, this is our Snyder cut. Like, the comic cast was Man of Steel, then this will be the BVS, and then when they release the live-action movie, that will be our Justice League. And so you'll have a nice little trilogy.
And then we'll publish a video of all three mashed together in black and white.
That's square
with an extra scene.
That's it. You'll only be able to watch it on Binge. Or Quibi.
The extra scene is me looking up at a CGI Sam talking to me, and he's like, "My name's Sam Garonda," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then he just flies away. I'm like, "Okay, that's
sick, amazing, perfect."
But we were talking about how generic the comic really sets up the whole show, the whole idea of it, and it never really moves beyond that. And we've talked about it a lot. Everyone's interesting, everything's relevant, but I am very impressed with how generic the show still feels in that first episode, and how the tropes of that never go away. Like, the show is still very much like teen learning to be a superhero. And it's possibly the best version of that now. Like, because in that I was like, it's very tropey and boring, and that doesn't mean anything to us now. But now this series is like, well, this is the best Spider-Man origin I've ever watched.
Again, I think all the origins and learning and stuff that they do, you don't see them fail. You don't see them struggle. They just can do it, or they struggle for like a minute. They struggle with one battle, and then they work it out, and then they do it. It's like Flash season 1. Just monster of the day, every episode, and he struggles once, and then he figures it out, and then goes back and fights it and wins. That's kind of not what happens here. Like, every single battle, he really struggles, and he's like, this is actually really hard, and something starts to ruin him mentally every time. That's what I'm saying, where the violence has so much weight to it, and you can feel it in his character. Like, he's just really struggling, and I like you said, it is the best version because he's so vulnerable the whole time. It's very cool.
It's pretty remarkable how it succeeds in being both the best commentary on superhero media and the best one of the best pieces of superhero media out there. It's like, it does both at the same time, which is very cool. The other scene that just popped into my head that I wanted to talk about was the scene with Battle Beast where we also have Mahershala Ali. Shout out to him,
dude! Like
showing up.
When I found out it was him again, it's another person that I'm like, and anytime he is in something, I'm like, how the hell? How do you nail down this man? Because how did you get him into a leader battle angel? Who let that happen?
Oh, it's him.
Yeah.
Everyone totally just saw me just
totally had one of those moments.
He's going to play Blade. Is your other point of reference?
Very good.
Yeah,
excellent.
But that's cool. No, I really liked that scene in particular, and I mean it kind of comes back in the final episode when Mark gets beat up. But it's like, obviously, the joke is that his name is Invincible, and we quickly learn he's not invincible. But like the way that scene plays out, and how it just seems like it's going to be a normal battle, and it's your average like monster of the week, story of the week kind of thing, and all of a sudden, the Guardian, like half the Guardians nearly die, Mark nearly dies, and you get this new character, Battle Beast, just pops up out of nowhere and then leaves, and you're like, he's coming back later, but it so quickly turns from a pretty regular episode into something completely different, and just that tonal shift for me was one of the best of the whole series. I mean, there's plenty of good moments, but yeah, I like that one in particular, I have to say.
And also there's a man with an auto-tune voice constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I like that guy.
Yeah. I kind of thought it would be Alan Tudyk. I felt like that would totally be the character he would play.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
It did sound a bit like him as well.
Right, yeah. But, no, that whole friggin'... It's just... It's also like how quickly this universe opens up as well. Like say, episode 1 is like, oh, there's like a Justice League and there's that. And then by, episode 3 or 4, he's on Mars. It's like, this show is like... It quickly becomes a universe in a way that I've not seen something so fresh. And obviously, again, it helps when you have written the entirety of your story and you can pull those ideas in. But it's the fact that it works so seamlessly and that it doesn't feel like he's pulling something from issue 150 into this. It's like, this feels like how it was always supposed to be. And I'm just like... It's so exciting for people to be able to watch something that isn't DC and Marvel as well. That's another thought in my head. I'm like, it's a successful version. Like I was talking to you earlier about the Jupiter Legacy, and it's like, this is shit. Like, this is a terrible thing. And I love The Boys, but that is like up its own ass in terms of being a funny commentary on everything. Whereas,
and talk about gratuitous violence. That's
there's so much of that show that I'm like, why? You didn't need to do that. You didn't need to drive a boat into the side of a whale. Whereas, it's like, this is that happens. This is just like, I'm excited for this to be.
Yes, you did need to push him through a train.
Totally. You needed to put your fingers through those eyes. It's exciting, and a tiny part of me is happy for the next generation of superhero fans, because I feel like each generation gets more okay with violence. And I feel like maybe not our kids, but the kids after that will be able to watch this on a 3 o'clock in the afternoon on ABC Me. So that'll be very exciting.
It'll be great. Yeah, just on that, you were kind of saying that, he's been able to, Robert Kirkman has been able to kind of pull these characters out. But you see them and you're like, oh, it's his version of Batman, it's his version of whatever, but it is his version. It is, it's its own character. Like, you're like, oh yeah, that's reminiscent of that, but it's not that. And you can tell it's just becomes a whole new thing, and he's rewritten it in such an amazing way.
Their version of the Justice League is hilarious, but also then they also double down and make those characters things in future episodes and flesh them out. They don't need to; they're dead. But it's like it's pretty neat. And just on the way he fleshes out the world, I think it's just it's kind of incredible just how much he does, and how every little story thread that he's put in there that they bring back in that last final scene where they flick through them all. every one of them, I was like, oh, I'm excited about that. Oh, I can't wait to see what happens there.
The little checklist.
And there's even one that, like, most of those I've read about in the follow-up comics, but there's even one that happens in the comics that hasn't happened in the show yet that I'm very excited to see, and they've mentioned is happening as well in season 2. So there's just, like, even the side stories, which also start to intertwine and become main stories, are like...
Yeah.
There's A, B, C, D, E plots, and they're all part of the A plot.
Yeah. I'm so excited for where this show can go.
Yeah.
And I hope it gets a bigger budget, because I want to see some cool shit. But anyone got any other thoughts? Are we filled out?
Please. Give it to us soon.
Yes. Totally. I mean...
And also take your time to animate it. I don't care.
Put some more frames in there, but also give it to us pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Harlequin season 2.
Totally. Well, I mean, probably
only a few months in between. Yeah, probably not. Next year would be nice, maybe.
Next year would be nice. Emmy, if you haven't watched the season by the end of this podcast, be sure to do it. Amazon Prime, there's like trials and stuff. You can watch that. You can watch The Boys. You can watch The Tick. You can watch The Grand Tour. You could watch...
There you go. Great superhero show.
Yeah. It's 3 middle-aged men just superpowering around the world.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably other things on Amazon Prime. That's all that really matters.
Hey, Ben, I found it. I realized the other day at Supernova, Emmy came with us.
Yes.
The Snyder Cut was the first superhero thing she's seen.
Oh my god.
She hasn't seen any of the DC movies. She hasn't seen any of the Marvel movies. She hasn't watched any of the shows.
And it was because you did a watch along.
Yeah, and it was because we did a watch along, and she got the trial. So it's the first thing she's ever watched.
That's
the superhero
amazing.
thing, and yet she's been following us for like 5 years.
Yeah. That's
the best.
So if you would like to be corrupted by us, you can jump on over to patreon.com/each to their own. Just $3 will get you into our Discord, and we'll tell you terrible, terrible things that you should watch. But also, we'll make podcasts about really, really good things that you should watch, and you might be able to listen or watch them early if you get into the Discord and do all the Patreon stuff. If you want to watch us, you can jump on over to youtube.com/each to their own. You can jump into twitch.tv/etonline. And that's where we exist. But there's 2 other people here, one of which, I mean, all of us are part of that, but we exist in more than those places. So, Ben, where can people find you?
Yes, so just on ETTO stuff, I do a comic cast with these guys every month, which we mentioned briefly earlier, but go listen to them. They're great. We pick a new comic each month, depending on what's coming out. In terms of my own stuff I do, the main thing is, at the moment, I stream at least most of the time every Tuesday, over on twitch.tv/ArgonTV. So give that a follow. And Josh?
Yeah, I have another channel with a mate of mine from work. We just play through games, so it's 2 game devs just having a look at games that we missed. You can find that on YouTube. Just search The Stream Tapes. I don't think we have a URL, but I should look into that. I think you need like a certain number of subs to get there.
I think you need to exist for 30 days, so I think you're good.
Yeah, right. Maybe we're good. Yeah, I'll have a look into that. But yeah, go check us out. We've been playing through Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and we're trying to finish off Half-Life 1. We're getting there. But yeah, come check us out, come hang out, come suggest things that you want us to play or even talk about, because we don't just talk about the game, we just talk about like life and what's been happening. So yeah, it's good stuff. Come check it out. And Will also does something else.
I do. I assume you're referencing the Back of Pockets. Maybe. Yeah. So if you want to support that thing, they've got a Patreon, but if you want to watch it, you can go to youtube.com. No, I'm just going to say you can click on backpocket.gg is probably the best place to go, because all the URLs are all very different. And
there's a link tree or something. Look up Backpocket.
Yeah, just look up Backpocket. Yep. I'm sure you'll get straight to Australia's gaming channel. They stream every Thursday and post videos throughout the week. So do that if you want. Between the 3 of us, there is a lot that you need to ingest. So
there's so much content.
And
some say we stretch ourselves too thin. Others say
I don't know.
I don't know. They probably do.
Yeah.
Others say who?
Yeah.
No idea who we are.
Never heard of them. But if you want to heard of us, you can go to all those different links and enjoy it. So until the next thing you see our faces in, I've been Will.
I've been Josh.
I've been Ben. See ya.
See you guys.